And it's really good to ask the students for all of their different solutions, as that gives you more information on what the students already know, where the students are having trouble with, and which students know which particular strategies are not, and which students use which, what's the majority, things like that. You get a lot of the whole class data in these particular assignments, as these particular story problems, they do start building in the next couple of sessions, but they are a lot of review on what was learned last year. So this is when you really start talking about the multiplicative comparison. So you want to really focus on blank times as many. How many times as many? How many times as much, or how many times as many? They really want a multiplicative comparison. This is the introduction. They're introducing them into more formal concepts of multiplication through the use of a multiplicative comparison. It will come back many, many times in this particular module and in upcoming modules. In this particular video, it says start at minute 1, because the first minute kind of goes over what the Powtoons is, and it introduces the friends. It's not really as important for the kids to see. Once it starts at minute 1, it starts talking about the actual word multiplicative comparison, and it's only about 3 to 4 minutes long, but it really shows them visuals, and it shows them a little song about what a multiplicative comparison is, and actually sounds out the word multiplicative comparison, and the kids seem to really like the little characters. There's another way, another format to get the students to hear what an actual multiplicative comparison is. So here's where we're going to start moving into the I do portion. So instead of them working with partners, they're going to think about it. They're going to think about it by themselves for a little bit first. They're going to try and solve it by themselves. And then in this particular problem, they will share their thoughts after they've solved it themselves. After that, they'll share their thoughts with the group, and we'll answer the question with the equation and the answer labeled correct units. This is also something really important to point out, labeled with the correct units, because that's going to come back many, many times. And they should start to get in the habit of this. And this particular question is good to focus on because this is the multiplicative comparison that they're asking them to solve. So this page, they are going to work with a partner on, and if they choose, there is always some students that who understand it and want to work by themselves. Ask them to try to avoid not working by themselves, but it's not really something that you want to push at this point. But it is good for, again, anecdotal notes to see which students like working by themselves, which students struggle working with partners, or which students really enjoy working with partners. So this page is in their student book, and it is on page 1 in their student book, and it's the same questions that they were just doing with you or with the partners, and we were talking it through. The challenge at the bottom on page 1 is always a little bit more difficult. It kind of gets the students to think more number sense wise, and it's always good to ask them to try it to see if they can extend their learning a little bit. So once you review the questions on the previous slide and student page number 1, you want to come back to this multiplicative comparison, because they did a lot of them on that page. And this is going to be your post assessment. They watched the video, you talked about it, we've defined it. And now it's their turn to tell you what is a multiplicative comparison and to give an example. So this is to see which students are starting to understand what the multiplicative comparison is, some that are kind of in between, and some who just really don't understand it yet. And the giving an example is good because a lot of the times at this point, some students, they find it kind of hard to define it, but they can give you an example. And depending on the example, you can kind of tell if the students get it or not. And again, if the names for some reason were turned on, then down here, once they start popping up, then you should be able just to turn the names off. And all of this data that it's going to give you is going to save for you on your Smart Learning Suite account, so you'll be able to look at it later. So the last shout out that we're going to do is going back to how the room looked and sounded while you worked with a partner. So this comes back to building that class community and hitting the ground running. So they're going to post in what went well during their class activity and what can be improved. And this is a really good discussion. This is a really good time for when some kids may not even realize that they're being too loud. Some kids might not even realize they, spend a lot of time up at the pencil sharpener, or they don't really like being in partners, or anything of the sort. Again, with the names, you can always turn them off or you can turn them on depending on how you want to do it. But this is really good information that the class can have and kind of reflect on how they perceived what it looks like and what it sounds like, and what they perceive went well, what they perceive can be improved. So this is a good time to take anecdotal notes, or to look at this data and say who exactly thought about what went well and who exactly thought the different things about what can be improved. A community of learners. This is again to have that good discussion that in this particular math classroom, it is okay to make mistakes. That's really the big one. A lot of students don't add that to the chart. So if they don't, this is a good time to make sure that they understand that it's a comfortable space. Everybody is learning, and it's a big community. So this is really a discussion page. And this is their independent work that they're going to do. This one, I would very highly suggest having them tear it out of their notebooks. That way you get some really good information on if they remember and they can do standards from 3rd grade. So this is data for individual students. And this is in their student book. I believe it is on page 3. But I would just have them tear it out, and I would check and see how many can solve one-step problems, how many fluently multiply, and which strategies they use. The strategies one is a big one because in the next couple of modules, they're going to start going over the different strategies. Now, the timer is set for 10 minutes. You can alter that, of course, based on need for your group. You can make it more time, you can make it less time. And this is also a really good opportunity to kind of pull in those students that you may have red flagged earlier during their group work or partner work time. Kind of pull them over and think about what their thinking process is, and see if some of them are like, oh, that was just kind of a fluke, or oh, this student's going to need a little bit of extra help getting up to speed with the 4th grade standard. So this gives you a lot of information on this page. And this is actually the very last one, other than the references. So this would be the end of your session. So you would end the session with the daily practice. The review, this is where you would do the discussion of the review and the things that you learned. So this would be the end of session 1. So the following day, you would start off with session 2, and you would follow that lesson plan for session 2.